Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Gas and Window, where we're going to be talking about some multi-engine aircraft type concepts today. To kind of briefly go over it, we're going to be figuring out what a conventional twin engine is versus a counter-rotating engine and, well, aircraft, and how they differ and why someone would use one over the other. To do this, we're going to go over our PAST acronym, and drawing our multi-engine aircraft, we're able to dive straight in. All right, the first one on our list is going to be our P factor, also known as asymmetrical thrust, as in our aircraft, the conventional twin has a rotation to the right. That pretty much means that the downward moving blade, or the asymmetrical thrust, is going to be greater on the downward moving blade, and since it's rotating to the right, the propeller direction will have a greater thrust aspect on the right side of our aircraft. That would leave a little less thrust on the other side. So the ascending blade creates less thrust, while the descending creates a lot more thrust. And that P factor asymmetrical thrust will cause a yawing moment to the left. Now let's talk about the critical engine. We are able to see that if the left is inoperative, we see that the arm is smaller than the arm on the other side of the aircraft. The arm is like a seesaw.
And when I say it's like a seesaw, I mean there are two weights. If this weight in the picture here is further out along the edge compared to this one, which is closer to the fulcrum, right? They're going to be two different distances from the fulcrum. And the one that is further to the outside, here on the right, is going to have a greater force compared to that of the left. With that analogy out of the way, let's get back to the drawing.
Dictate this a little bit more and see that our arm is very important when it comes to a force being acted upon. So with the smaller arm, it creates less force, larger arm, more force. And in this case, it's going to be on the outside of the aircraft, so it's going to be creating a yawing movement to the left if our left engine is inoperative. Using this same diagram, we are also able to go into our next topic, which is our accelerated slipstream. And that's pretty much going to be the downward aspects, right? So with more thrust, we create more drag, because everything we do is in unison with the laws of motion. Thank you, Sir Isaac Newton. We'll get into him in a mere moment. But going back over this, more airflow is being pushed over the airfoil on the right side of the aircraft. In the right engine, for example, we're creating more thrust, more airfoil. So using a quick little diagram, we know that we are creating a lot more lift on the outward side of the aircraft. And we were just talking about the seesaw, how the further out you go, the more force you get. And well, in this case, more lift means this wing will go up, which will create a roll. And that roll can be another aid on why this is also going to be a critical engine on the left side. If this left engine is inoperative, we'll have, remember that arm, we're going to have not only the yawing moment from P factor, but a rolling aspect as well because of the the accelerated slipstream. That rolling factor is going to allow the wing to go over, compared if it was on the inside of the aircraft, which would be, a little bit more stable, right? Kind of that whole keel effect of like a ship, right? It's made like this, so that way the weight can be distributed from the waves and thus keep it straight up and down. Because if we had a boat like this, it'd be a lot easier to tip over. That's why the keel is a very important aspect, and something you'll learn a little bit more into flight, but we'll explain more of that here in the later episodes. Now moving on to our spiraling slipstream. we have the force coming backwards, right? More thrust along the right side of the conventional aircraft, and that wash is going to go in a right direction. And first off the bat, we notice that the right engine has no factor against the rudder compared to the left, which is hitting the rudder. So if this engine was inoperative, we would not receive rudder control or input to give us that directional control that we need to stay coordinated during flight. So as that is another reason why that's a critical engine. And that's plain and simple, the spiraling slipstream aspect right there. Torque is going to be our last one. Speaking of Isaac Newton from earlier, we have the aspect of, well, his laws. As we know, the right engine and the left engine are both having a blade moving to the right, right? That downward blade. So we know that rotation is going to be in this direction. Propeller rotation. But with every force, there is an opposite and equal reaction. And that reaction is going to be our torque aspect. Torque, torque. With this, on the left engine, since the main thrust is closer to the body, it's going to be a little bit more of like a minus. The torque plus the propeller rotations is going to be a little bit countering each other, while on the right, yes, you'll also be counting each other, but because of that arm, we have to add on the P factor, the isometrical, the accelerated slipstream, because that greater force, right, there's more to go off of compared to the left if we had the right become inoperative. And long story short, we're able to see that the left engine is inoperative, and going through all of these processes is very important to not only show you have an understanding of the actual aircraft you're flying, but the concepts that are behind them. So let's go over the counter rotating real quick. If we have all these negatives with the conventional, what does the counter rotating do? Well, just like the conventional, it also has a downward moving blade on the left engine. So the propeller rotation, right, is going to be on the left, while the right engine has a downward moving blade to the left. So yeah, it's literally the opposite. The downward moving blade is going to be on this side, and the downward moving blade is going to be on this side. We'll do little triangles to kind of represent that because I did a bad drawing. So with that being said, we're able to see that the P factor, or the downward moving blade, is on the inside of the aircraft. So we have not only our slipstream that's hitting our rudder if one of them goes inoperative, we also have more control because it's hitting the rudder, and we know that everything is more uniform rather than fighting each other like it is here. So that's kind of why we would want a counter-rotating aircraft compared to the other. And well, torque is going to be another one, right? It's going to be the opposite reaction, so they just cancel each other out, and that's why it's so great. So Micah, why is this all good? And this is all good and all, but why would one person want one over the other? Well, mainly maintenance. Maintenance is a huge reason, because this is a 1960s aircraft most likely, and the right engine, that left downward moving blade, is probably harder to find. So it's going to be a little bit more expensive, while the left engine, right, there's going to be a lot more of them available because there are a lot more of these aircraft. So since it's harder to find older parts, and especially low time engines and all that aspects, maintenance is a big reason. And so it might take you a little bit more time to actually get it running because you actually have to look for the parts or have your mechanic look for the parts. But hopefully this helps kind of really figure it out on why one aircraft is over the other, and the reasons behind why one might be more cumbersome if you want to buy an aircraft versus fly. So I'm glad you guys are with me, and hopefully this window strat works. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.